Hiya, I'm Shaggy. I'm Phil Alitea. I want to tell you my favorite parable. Now, in the 20th century, the 19th century, any wisdom parable, any fable, any kind of wisdom that was presented to normal people in the West, so Europe and North America, was euphemistically called a Chinese parable. Because the idea was that, well, the Chinese people have a civilization that's at least as old as the West, so they have parables that are probably as good as the Christian and Jewish ones. Now, I'm not a Chinese person, and I'm not going to read the parable, and I'm not going to tell it all the way through, because it's a fairly long one, and as much as I'm a Shaggy Dog storyteller, I will save your time for this 3-minute video. Effectively, we've got this farmer, old man. He has a son approaching adulthood, or in early adulthood, and a rich farm. And things start happening to this guy, like one of his horses falls over and breaks his leg, and his neighbor comments on it, and it's like, oh, well, that sucks. And he's like, the farmer's like, maybe. And then the farmer's son has to go to war, and the neighbor's like, oh, that sucks. And the farmer's like, maybe. And that's just how the story goes. It doesn't really have an end. It doesn't really have the kind of character development or arc that you would look for. It has a moral, though. The moral is the takeaway at the end of a story. We understand that, right? And so, like, we understand that, especially young men, this is why people get so angry when you, or I don't do this, but when you assume moral superiority. You assume a stance of moral superiority, people get upset, because what you're doing is you're telling them that you know the takeaway of the story better than they do. And when it's their own life, that is a little bit of an overreach. You don't actually know the moral outcome of their story, even if you can predict it and be right. The moral of the story is that you don't actually know. Maybe the neighbor was right. Maybe the neighbor was wrong. Maybe you're right. Maybe you're wrong. Maybe.